Woof, everybody, is Cantonese Dog here. I'm going to spend some time talking to you about my bullish thesis of Dogecoin. And I've been pretty bullish and pretty verbal about it too over the last few months. And I'm going to show you a system reason why I think that is the case. So I always like to start with as higher time frame as possible to try to, show you some of the data that we have. I like to show 6-month candles sometimes to look at the candle formation, things like that. What I'm really seeing right off the bat here, just looking at the 6-month, is that just like the last cycle, it created a big giant push up, and then it seemed to be forming this kind of bull flag kind of thing and consolidate for a good, 3 years before it made another solid move up, just like it did in 2020 to 2021. The thing about Dogecoin is it does tend to have a little bit of like a descending triangle here, which if you look at traditional technical analysis, these things are generally a little bit more bearish. There's a tendency to show that, hey, this keeps on testing this horizontal support here. Is it going to like break down? Is it going to like just go straight down to a toilet? And also seem like, if there's a descending triangle up top here, it seems like maybe there's less and less buyers. Is that what's happening here? Sure, it could potentially lean a little bit bearish, but that's just a part of Doge's personality. If you look over here, even if you look over here, it kind of did the same thing over the last couple of cycles. So it doesn't bother me as much, and I'm going to show you some of the indicators as to why it doesn't bother me as much. But just right off the bat, it looks like, there's a little bit more of a bull flag here, even though it does look a little bit like a descending triangle. It doesn't bother me. It will dive into a little bit as to why that is. In addition, it also does look like a big giant candle here with 6 inside candles over here, which, again, there's a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of energy that's being built up over here. Let's zoom in a little bit and look at 3 months. If you look at 3 months, that's also exactly what I was kind of talking about, right? It always has this kind of like a weird descending triangle look over here. It did have like a false breakdown over here back when you had COVID, but it never really truly broke down of this triangle during the last cycle and just kind of kept going up. Here, I think we're forming a very similar look here. Now, it's tough for me to say that it's absolutely like a descending triangle because it keeps on breaking above it. It depends on where you draw the line. It doesn't matter. It keeps on breaking above it. If anything, you can also argue that it broke out this descending triangle, is trying to go for a retest, and it could be forming a descending triangle up to here. But there's not really a whole lot of lines for me to draw to really prove that that's the case. So I'm not going to worry about it as much, right? More importantly, again, if you zoom in, you can see that this is also a big giant candle here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 inside candles over here. A lot of energy is being built up. Just like over here, there's a big giant candle here. There's a lot of inside candles over here too. Eventually, the energy was so much that it ended up breaking through. Now, the other way to look at it, let's take a look at more of a 1-month chart over here. When you get to the 1 month, you actually can start using a lot of these different, moving averages type indicators. The first thing I want to look at is more of looking at the Bollinger Band. First of all, it looks like it just looks like a dog to me. The legs back here, a little tail. But anyway, the thing about looking at the Bollinger Band is you want to see a couple things to be building up. First thing first is that whenever you have the Bollinger Band, the upper and lower getting really close together, it starts to suggest that there could be a big move that's coming up. They call it the Bollinger Band squeeze, right? As you squeeze, there's going to be tons of energy that's being squeezed for over the years. There's a lot of consolidation causes the Bollinger Band to be very, very tight. And when the Bollinger Band breaks out, a very powerful move comes. And that's exactly what happened in the last cycle, right? Well, I think a very similar thing can be said about what's going on here. And I could take another few months, and I'll show you in terms of why I think it could take another few months. I think maybe May of 2024. And I also think that my friend, the Great Masby, also feel very similar. I encourage you to also check out his video on Doge on X if you have time. He used a lot of different methods, more than I do, to really analyze this. But one key thing here is I see a potential big move being built up here. Now, with the Bollinger Band, you're also going to see on the monthly, you'll see this 20 moving average, and this is a 20-month moving average. You can see very similar things are happening here compared to the last cycle, right? You can see that it made a little bit of like a band shape here, a little bit of like a false kind of breakout here. It has a little bit of a bulging over here too. But of course, trend kept going down until it doesn't, right? It's starting to form a little bit of a upslope here for another few months before it truly broke out. And guess what? Over here, it starts to flatten, and also over here, it also starts to flatten, isn't it? Matter of fact, if you really zoom in, it's uptrending. So over here, the 20-month moving average, the price is actually 0.0778. Over here is 0.787, so it is literally basing, is literally forming this higher time frame change. And this is important because you want to see a trend change, you want to try to get ahead of it, and you want to sniff it out because a potential move could be coming. Even though some people do want to wait for confirmation, which is completely fine, I generally like to sniff out these things before they happen. That's one clue that I think is going to happen. The other clue is if you look at the Ichimoku cloud, you can see a very similar thing is starting to happen. And again, it can take another few months for it to happen, which I think possibly around May, I don't know. But you can see that there is a Tenkan Kijun cross that is very, very bullish, and those two actually overlap and just made this huge parabolic run in 2021, which impressed everybody and got a lot of people stuck with Dogecoin as back holders as it continually goes down, and a lot of bearish sentiment has been built up over the years, and I think we're probably getting close to running up again. But sorry, I digress. This is where I see that there could be a potential bullish cross that's coming maybe in a few months. And when it happens, there could be a very parabolic move that's going to happen. And it can slice through the Ichimoku cloud like Swiss cheese. It's quite incredible in terms of what I'm seeing here. Very similar thing could be happening here. Again, no guarantees. We're looking at markers. We're looking at history. We're trying to extrapolate what's going to happen. There are no guarantees, right? But before I say that, I also want to point out the weekly too. I do want to tell you that for many months now, and a lot of my ex-followers will tell you that, for many months now, I've been eyeing this weekly Ichimoku cloud. I see a very similar pattern where it's trying to, it's at the bottom of this cloud and it's been making tries of trying to break into the cloud for really, over the course of 2 years. And it's doing the same thing. It's been trying to break into the cloud and failing for about 2 years over here on the most recent cycle that we're in right now. And when I sniff out that it's doing something like this, like it did over here, I made a lot of posts sometime a few months ago saying that what I think could happen is could be a very similar thing that happened here, where it could finally push inside the Ichimoku cloud. And it's going to bounce around the cloud here a little bit for a few months. It's going to push up and it's going to go down. It's going to retest the cloud at the top and it's going to retest the cloud at the bottom. And eventually it's going to break above the cloud. And when it does, is when this huge parabolic move could be happening. And I drew a bunch of arrows when price action was here. I was pointing up, I was pointing down, and I think eventually it's going to break out after a few months. And I think so far it seems to be playing out, kind of what I'm thinking. Obviously, I like to have more confirmation, but I'm not going to wait for the confirmation after having such a huge accumulation range over here for about 2 years. And after things are still playing as my thesis would suspect, because it's basically trying to test this as resistance and support. And the more it tests here, the more powerful the move is going to be, I think. Now, in addition to looking at the Ichimoku cloud, I like to look at this weekly chart a lot of times, a bull market support band, which gives you the 20-week simple moving average and the 21-week of the exponential moving average. And if you click on that, it's really forming this base forming behavior. I think we could potentially be somewhere over here of the cycle. There's a potential that, depending on what Bitcoin's going to do, Bitcoin would, if it shows some short-term weakness, Dogecoin could also potentially break down underneath this bull market support band and then eventually bounce back up again and go up. It's very possible that we're right here right now, as opposed to, over here. Very similar point of the cycle. Or you could just keep finding support here and just keep ranging here, and it could potentially break out after a few months without going back down underneath of it. I don't know. But so far, I'm starting to see a very similar look on even on the bull market support trend, the bull market support band trend line, really starting to give me a very, very similar look and very similar vibe, right? And again, I go by the personality of the underlying asset. I go by the personality of the underlying stock or crypto, and that's really kind of what it's doing. For the bull market, it keeps making these crazy parabolic moves, and it keeps making these crazy higher highs and these higher lows until it doesn't. And over here, the same thing, right? Now, why do I think that this whole breakout could potentially be in May of 2024? That is based on looking at the monthly. And all I'm going to say right now is if you look at the pattern, you're trying to find a good timing to figure out what's going to happen. You try to find a fractal if you can with the same underlying assets, and you try to figure out what the behavior was, based on last cycle, that could give you a little bit of additional idea and potential edge in terms of what's going to happen this cycle, right? Over here, making all-time high over here at this time, January 2018, right? When did it come up with this, huge breakout candle? I like to call it the dog candle. January 2021, exactly 3 years, exactly 36 months, right? Again, previous all-time high, January 2018, breakout candle, January 2021. This happened with a span of 36 months. All-time high, May of 2021. If you add 36 months on top of it, you target about May of 2024. And this is also in confluence with all the markers that I was able to show you, including Bollinger Band. Looks like it squeezed here for a few additional months before it really had this huge breakout, and it could squeeze for another 3 months here before it had the huge breakout. And also show you about the Ichimoku cloud, same thing, right? Eventually it takes a few months. So I think we're probably somewhere over here. It might take an additional few months for it to have this bullish Tengen Kijun cross, for that big giant dog candle to happen. But there's a lot of confluence here that I just wanted to point out. Now, I don't go to the daily chart because it's relatively meaningless to me. I'm more thinking like a longer term process. And I do plan to take profits here, right? Because a huge parabolic move and then followed by a few years of this crazy downward action and a lot of these sideways action here. I do plan to take profit from Doge. The question is always when you're going to take profit. And there are a couple things to look at. Again, one thing is to always talk about is to look at the Fibonacci level. What did Doge do last time when it comes to Fibonacci level? Doge did something absolutely ridiculous last time when it comes to that. Again, from the last cycle high to the lows, you can actually see that Doge respect these levels pretty well. It went crazy, and you can really tell from the sentiment too. Everybody was talking about Doge at one point. It went absolutely nuts, and I want to show you why I say that. Usually when I think about from top to bottom, and then if it makes an all-time high, usually price end up hitting 1.618 or 2.618, and you're going to start seeing a lot of resistance up here because that's what the algorithm and that's what a lot of traders are looking at. Doge went way past that. Like, it did not care. It just went to like 4.236 before it started getting like a little bit of a tweezer top right here. And it did go back down and retest 1.618, and it just kept going. It went parabolic, and it was absolutely crazy cycle. I think a lot of people forgot how Doge behaved last cycle. It went crazy, right? It went beyond what you would believe, right? Which is why it really became a cultural phenomenon and everything. I don't think it's going to happen again. I don't think it's going to be like all the way up like that. I do think that we're going to start getting a lot of resistance at 1.618 and 2.618. Most likely, I think the cycle could make it up to 1.618. You're going to start seeing some resistance. It can go back down and test some of the lower Fibonacci level as support, and it could go make another leg up to like the 2.618 or even 3.618. But I don't think the same thing is going to happen this cycle as it did last cycle. The market cap for Doge is getting a little bit crazy for that to happen. I'll show you. I'll talk a little bit through that. So to look at this cycle, what I think could happen, again, look at the all-time high and then look at the bottom of where it went, right? It tried to bounce up to 0.136 here, and it got rejected, and I think it's going to bounce up most likely based on what I'm seeing. No guarantees, but I think it's most likely going to break through if you give it enough time. And I think that over the next couple of years, maybe in the next 12 to 18 months, depending on how the Bitcoin cycle goes, it could really try to break through out of this range over here. And if it breaks all-time high around 76 cents, it could be a dollar Dogecoin. It could be $1.20 up here before it starts to see any major resistance. And it could go down, and it could eventually push up to about $2 or beyond. Some people have stronger targets. Some people have more conservative targets. I know, my good friend that I respect a lot, recent follow, the great Masby again. He has more conservative price targets, and it's always good to have some more conservative price targets to think about that way. But based on past behavior, I do think that most likely it's going to make higher high compared to the last cycle top, based on liquidity condition and based on if Bitcoin makes a higher high out, or all-time highs beyond 69,000. I think most likely a lot of liquidity is going to flow into Dogecoin, and it could potentially get a little bit crazy here. My current target is actually more closer to $2, but you don't have to listen to me, right? Like a lot of people just probably start taking profit along the way. I don't know whether or not it's going to make up to $2. The market cap for Doge right now is about $12 billion, which is a little bit insane to think about. Now, it doesn't mean that people put $12 billion into Dogecoin. It just means that there's enough credit out there for people to want to buy and support Dogecoin to a $12 billion dollar market cap. And the crazy thing is that the last cycle, if you just look at the market cap for the last cycle for Doge, it went up to about 100 billion. And to be completely honest, I don't see Dogecoin hitting a trillion market cap, right? Like, there's no way to me to think that the same thing's going to happen last time that is going to happen this time. Like, I just can't see that much of a parallel move where Dogecoin become a $1 trillion market cap. Now, I'd be pleasantly surprised, and very good for everybody who decide to hold up to a $1 trillion market cap. I just don't think the thing is going to happen. It's just not as realistic for me to have like an 80 or 100x up there. Like, it's just crazy to me. I think that maybe based on the fact that it was able to push up to $100 billion market cap, to think about potentially having a quarter trillion market cap is possible. Still kind of crazy to think about, right? A lot of people are like, Dogecoin has no utility. It's a crap coin. It doesn't add any utility to the present. But I do want to counteract that a little bit. So first of all, Dogecoin is the original meme coin. It's going to absorb liquidity if there's going to be another meme season that's going to come, and I think there's going to be another meme season that's going to come. Dogecoin is the definition and the predominant meme coin there is. So if there is increased global liquidity like there is right now, as shown by the way that Bitcoin has been behaving over the last year, I think Dogecoin is just going to play catch up, and when it does, it's going to be pretty powerful. Another thing to think about is just in the grander scheme of things, like you talk about ownership. Is Dogecoin really lesser than baseball card collectibles, awards that you get for recognition of what you're doing, status, power, Rolexes, Lambos? To me, I personally, I don't really like to strive for those kinds of things. That's just not me. And if you think that if you think like me, if you're not into like trying to buy like Rolex, you're not trying to buy Lambos, you just want to park your money somewhere, you just want to look for a good setup, you just want to get a good return based on both fundamental and technical analysis. I like to me, I think Dogecoin has value because it is a big cultural phenomenon. There's a big cultural impact. It is a main original OG, if you will, for the meme cycles to happen. I think there's a lot of value to that. Now, if you think about it, in addition to all that, if you actually end up adding some kind of utility to Dogecoin, who knows what Elon Musk is going to do, right? Like, he could end up using it as some kind of payment on X. Nobody knows what's going to happen, right? You don't have to have like true utility right now for Dogecoin to be at $12 billion just because it happens to be one of the most well-known asset of the whole crypto class. It apparently warrants $12 billion market cap and has been like that for years now. It's finding good support too, right? So it does make you think about the greater philosophical question of whether or not there is some value to it. I don't know. I'm just a dog. I'm just here to show you what I'm seeing. It's been 20 minutes. I'm gonna shut up now. Thank you for listening. Bye.